In the police station, a criminal was about to shoot a cop. Without thinking, Jim lunged at him. The criminal was quickly subdued, and neither of them was injured. But then, a female colleague asked, "Where did the bullet go?" Jim didn't answer. Instead, he nervously walked out, because he had caught the bullet with his bare hands. Jim couldn't believe what had just happened. So he went to a baseball field to test his newfound abilities. He set the pitching speed to 90 miles per hour. Then, he pressed the button to start. But he was afraid of getting hurt, so he didn't dare catch the ball. Instead, he encouraged himself. When the ball came out again, he reached up and caught it. Jim was ecstatic. He called his friend George to show off. Jim cranked up the pitching speed to the maximum, and the machine shook with force. Then there was a loud bang. The ball wasn't just caught, it was crushed in his hand. But George didn't believe Jim had superpowers. He thought it was some kind of magic trick. So Jim caught a few more balls with his bare hands. Seeing George still skeptical, Jim handed him a gun and asked him to shoot. George hesitated, afraid of hurting Jim, but suddenly the gun went off by accident, and Jim really caught the bullet. George was stunned. To test Jim's limits, they went to the roof of a tall building to see if Jim could fly. Jim, eager to test his own limits, jumped off the edge, but instead of flying, he crashed heavily into the ground. George, looking down at the big crater, was extremely worried, but the next second, Jim climbed up from the hole. He couldn't fly, but he had the power of immortality. Jim looked up at George on the roof, took a deep breath, and jumped with all his strength. To his surprise, he soared hundreds of meters high. With his new abilities, Jim decided to fight crime. One day, he saw a fire ahead, although firefighters had already arrived. A girl was trapped inside, and things were looking bad. Without thinking, Jim jumped across to the building across the street. He quickly found the stairs, but the fire below was raging. Without hesitation, he ran straight in. Before long, he had rescued the girl. The firefighters were shocked to see he wasn't hurt at all. But Jim didn't know the fire was just a distraction. The real plan was to use the fire to lure away the cops, so the robbers could rob a bank. They shot the security guard dead, then sped away in their car. What they didn't expect was for Jim to jump in and stop them. The robbers didn't take Jim seriously. They floored the gas pedal, trying to run him over with their car. Jim braced himself, ready to stop the car with his bare hands. But luckily, Jim's superpowers saved him, and he wasn't harmed. However, he remembered what the robbers looked like. He tracked them down and finally caught one of them. The robber was cocky, telling Jim to stay away. When Jim didn't back off, the robber suddenly teleported behind him, firing a shot. Fortunately, Jim caught the bullet. It seemed like the robber had superpowers too. The robber kept teleporting, and Jim couldn't figure out where he was. But soon, Jim found the robber's weakness, and threw him hard, sending him crashing onto a car. Seeing the gun on the ground, Jim ran toward it, but the robber teleported behind him, pressing the gun to his head. Just then, a gunshot rang out from behind. It was a police officer, who had been hunting the robber for a long time. Taking advantage of the distraction, Jim quickly fled the scene.